It's been a great couple weeks for the Florida State Seminoles, and it's certainly been a great week or two for my guest, the voice of the Seminoles, Mr. Jeff Culhane. Jeff, first of all, how are you, man? You rested the voice, had a nice bye week. It feels like everybody's kind of had a nice chance to recharge after a week 0 and then obviously a week 1 that I don't think many around here are ever going to forget.
Yeah, Ryan, I would say after the ending to that game in New Orleans, we all needed a bye week. That's for sure. And so, including me, what a wild finish. What an amazing game. And 2-0 for Mike Norvell and the Florida State Seminoles. And now I got to turn the page, get ready for another big one Friday night at Louisville in the ACC lid lifter.
Yeah, and of course, you got a chance to call something absolutely nuts. It's been on SportsCenter. It's been on just about every national talk show you could think of.
Snap, spot, blocked! Yeah! It's no good! Yeah! It's blocked! Shaheed Brown got his men on it! Fire up the war chant and plant the spear! Noles win! Noles win! Mike Norvell, you have your signature win early on in non-conference play.
2 weeks in, and you talked about Mike Norvell getting a signature win. You got a signature call, man. I mean, a blocked PAT after the life is completely sucked out of the Florida State sideline. Just, I guess, beyond just the actual call itself, walk me through, I guess, just the emotions. Obviously, William Floyd's going nuts. You can hear bar none over the air. But just what's the emotion in the box and what's running through your head when you're because I don't think people at home always understand you're trying to stay on top of things. You're trying to get things out. You're trying to get notes together. And yet your brain starts to process, oh, my God, that just happened.
Yeah. And just like we all drew it up, a blocked PAT with no time left in a 2-touchdown comeback in the last 9 minutes of the game, right? I think how I process it, looking back on it and thinking about the items as I remember them in the moment, a little bit of it was shock. A little bit of it was, man, I'm surprised we're here. I think I even said that at one point in time. It really felt like Florida State play. And they did. They played so well for 55 minutes, 54 minutes of that game. And felt like you had LSU ready to take a knee and hit the knockout blow, right? And then you have the fumble at the 1. And even then, you're like, all right, at the 1 yard line, they got to go 99 yards in 1:20 with 2 timeouts left, I think is what they had. And so just didn't really feel like that was going to happen. But, you make a few plays here, you make a few plays there. Then we have the bizarre stoppage with the 1 second. And where is Mason Taylor at? Is he inbounds? Is he out of bounds? And talking with people that I know in officiating, that was about as complex of an end of game scenario as that officiating crew could have dealt with, quite honestly. And it didn't completely get handled correctly overall. And so there's confusion there. And then you have the touchdown, the back of the end zone to Jere Jenkins. And just as we're talking about things and how they're working out, I remember really everything kind of started to click in my head as far as, hey, be ready for anything crazy here. When I mentioned Damian Ramos, redshirt freshman kicker who came to LSU as a walk-on, he might be the most nervous person in the Superdome right now. And for whatever reason, when that kind of entered my head and I said those words, I just kind of locked in a little bit on, all right, let's just see what happens and don't get ahead of ourselves as far as the play is concerned. And we all know how it went down. The rest is history. And, man, a lot of energy and a lot of excitement. And 2-0 for the Noles. Pretty fun.
There's a lot of games we're going to be talking about a long time from now that happened this weekend. And if you're a Florida State fan sitting at home and you're seeing the chaos and you're seeing what's happened to Notre Dame and Texas A&M, and you're seeing what's happened to Florida, you're seeing Miami start slow, you're thinking to yourself, thank God we didn't play this week, because it just kind of felt like this was one of those weeks that was insanely difficult to stay above the chaos. College football always has a handful of those every single year, it seems, but now you're going to be on a Friday night in a road environment. The Louisville Cardinals are your opponent. Of course, they were really desperate to get a win on Friday. They got one at the Bounce House against UCF. That's a really tough place to go win a football game. Scott Satterfield, lots of questions. It's an interesting program right now that's doing a lot of good things off the field. They seem to be recruiting well, but there's no doubt this is a Louisville team that really feels like they need this game that's coming up. And on top of that, this is a Florida State team that really feels like probably they can stake their claim nationally and say, hey, there's something worth looking at over here in Tallahassee. This isn't just flukes and blocked PATs. We've got something real. We're 3-0. It kind of feels like these two teams are coming into this game both desperately needing it for different reasons.
Yeah, like you said, a lot of intersecting storylines. I mean, I'll go back to where you began. And, I think what it tells everyone is you have to be ready every weekend, no matter who you're playing. And, who knows how it's going to end up at the end of the season. And maybe it is Alabama. And even though they probably should have lost to Texas last weekend as well, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State doesn't look bulletproof by any means. They haven't been a dominant football team.
And that Notre Dame loss only makes them look more suspect.
Right. Yeah. And so you got to be ready to go. And I think what it means is, and the things that I've learned, Ryan, being around college football, what you did a week ago has no bearing on what's going to happen the next week or 2 weeks later after a bye. You've got the great teams learn from their positives and learn from their mistakes, and they move on and they get ready for the next game. And they have, whether it's a win or a loss, they take that information, they're able to, compartmentalize it and use it to their advantage. And so, you can have momentum. I think momentum is certainly real, but you have to go out and play, and you have to go out and do what your coaches tell you to do and execute the game plan overall. And so, there's going to be situations where you don't play great and you win. And I heard the Hall of Fame head coach Jim Gladden said this to me, where he goes, look, there are going to be days like that where, hey, maybe you had to win with the block PAT at the end of the game with no time left. Which locker room would you rather be in? Ours or theirs at the end of the day? And that's the guys who won a lot of football games, talking about how that process works overall. So, getting to this weekend with Louisville and Florida State, I was really impressed by Louisville in the second half Friday night in Orlando. It was not a good first half for them. I mean, they were there's a little bit of the negative carryover from Syracuse, where I don't know what happened there to them, but they got run out of the building and they got blitzed from the start of that game for 60 minutes. And it wasn't a great start, but I was impressed by their defense. I thought their defense in the second half was dominant. I thought they flew around. They played with some swagger. And Malik Cunningham's a difference maker. And that's why he's so scary, because you feel like you got him. You feel like he's bottled up, and all of a sudden, boom, rips off a 43-yard touchdown run and you're behind. And all of a sudden, the tenor of the game changes. So what does this game mean for both of these teams? For Florida State, you go on the road and win this game, a place and a team you've struggled with the last couple of years. You move to 3-0, 1-0 in the league. First time you're 3-0 since 2015. Louisville is looking to grab and continue to seize that momentum from the second half in Orlando, and looking to beat a Florida State team that has momentum themselves. So a lot on the line early in the year, and obviously you want to keep this thing going if you're the Noles, and again, take what you learn, take the momentum, build off of it, but get ready to play a tough football game.
You mentioned a couple things there, and I'll get back to Malik Cunningham in a second, but you talked about college football week to week. Every team can be different. Everybody can feel different, and sometimes you become a victim of your own success. And, Florida State for these last few seasons hasn't had it rolling on a consistent basis, to where this is a team that's now learning how to deal with that success, learning how to deal with, hey, there's going to be some eyeballs on you coming up this Friday. People want to know if you're for real. They want to know if you can back this hype up. And that's where, more than anything, obviously Florida State's banged up in a couple positions, needed the rest. But where this bye week feels like it came at a perfect time, take you in the Wayback Machine 1 week, Jeff, Mike Norvell was not thrilled with that first practice after that LSU game.
I thought today was just an average practice. I think it was the first average practice we've had since we started up. And, wasn't good enough in regards to the intensity of what it needs to be. And ultimately, it's a choice that we have to make of what we want to be. So we'll continue to respond to that, or we'll see how they respond tomorrow. But today, And I don't think that was a good enough work day for what we needed to accomplish and what needed to be done. So last time we took this trip to where we're going, we had just, beaten a team that was highly rated and all that, and we went and got embarrassed because we didn't respond very well to success. When you win a game, yes, I'm excited that we won the game. I don't think we played our best football game. So, I'm pissed about that. Ultimately, that's what we are here to do, to be our best. And yes, effort, heart, that showed up at the end. The character, the identity of what I believe this team has and what they're about showed up in that game. I'm really pleased about it. But today you have an opportunity to go out and get better. And I think there's a lot of instances today where we were just okay being where we were. And that's unacceptable.
He said that they were a team that really didn't feel like they felt like they wanted to stay the same, not really be better. And you've been out to most of the practices. This is a guy who's been pretty thrilled with his team and its work ethic through, honestly, the beginning of fall camp. So, I feel like the bye came in a perfect place, not just because of the buildup and because you played week 0, but it gave this coaching staff maybe a little bit more of a lesson on how this team can deal with success going into a pivotal game like Louisville.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head, Ryan. This was a bye week. I think that was needed. It was a game that had so much emotion and a game that had been talked about by so many people for such a long time. And, look, LSU, I know, has not been the same LSU team they had been over the last, few years prior. But, Florida State either. Florida State's looking to try and return to past glories as well. We've gone through that whole storyline. And so the game in New Orleans is one of the big steps in as far as validation goes, I feel like, for, hey, this is the work we put in is paying off and it's working. And that was one step. It's not the end result. There's a lot of football left to be played. And as you mentioned, I know as Coach talked about last Wednesday, he wasn't thrilled with the first, practice, essentially full practice after the win over LSU. And so, you as leaders in the locker room, you've got to be able to move on. You have to be able to celebrate your successes, but the great teams move on and get ready for the next game. And, when you looked at the schedule to start the year, the first 3 games, the two, in New Orleans and in Louisville, you looked at and you said, man, if you can split those, you feel like you're in a pretty good place. Well, now you've got momentum and you've got some confidence here. Can you go into Louisville and win and start out 3-0? And all of a sudden you've got 3-0 as your record in 2 home games around the corner here at Doak Campbell Stadium. So leadership will be tested in this game. Handling success, like you talked about, is very key. We'll find out quite a bit where this Florida State football team is at. And to me, Ryan, I have no doubt they're going to be ready to play and ready to move on and take on the next challenge this coming Friday.
We're for that kid who just scored his first goal. We're for the new hire who's just looking to fit in. We're for that person who's impossible to shop for. We're for congratulating you on all your years of hard work. We're awards for you, and we're for helping you celebrate life's special moments.
Madison RV and Golf Resort is a camper and golfer's dream. We invite you to come stay with us, play our challenging layout, 18 tee boxes and 9 championship holes, rolling terrain, and a golf training facility. Catch and release fish, relax in our new pool or play pickleball. Madison RV and Golf Resort is the perfect location to enjoy the outdoors in a relaxing, fresh air atmosphere. Madison RV and Golf Resort, Madison, Florida, just off I-10. Reserve your spot today. MadisonRVResort.com.
Looking to this Louisville team, you already mentioned it, Jeff. It's a roster full of talented players, good pieces, but sometimes when it comes to Louisville on offense, it really does feel like a one-sum game. At some point, it doesn't matter if you're the 85 Bears. Malik Cunningham will find a way to hurt you at some point in this game. How much can you limit that? How much can you bottle him up? Because he is so good at improvising. He is so good when the script isn't necessarily as it was drawn up. He does do so many things that the average quarterback can't do because he is so gifted athletically. Just how important is this game when it comes down to just limiting him and what he can do and just how much Louisville's offense can burn you? Because Louisville has not lit up the scoreboard through 2 weeks, but you know that potential is there as long as he's under center.
Yeah, I would completely agree with you again. And look, it's hard to sit here and say that one player makes an entire football game, but with this guy, it's pretty close. I mean, with Malik Cunningham, it's pretty darn close. Obviously, there's a lot of comparisons to the great Lamar Jackson, and there's certainly some PTSD there for Noles fans from past years, and there's PTSD with Malik Cunningham over the last couple of years as well. And so, yes, what Malik does is he challenges your attention to detail every single play. Because the second you break down or one of the 111th breaks down, he's going to make you pay. And the touchdown run at Central Florida was a 43-yard scramble. That wasn't a designed run. That's just Malik getting out, and all of a sudden he's got a full head of steam, and it's game over. And so you've got a lot of these guys on this Florida State defense that have played against Malik Cunningham. Tatum Bethune played in the game for UCF last year in Louisville against Malik Cunningham. So very well aware of what they are up against. And I know Adam Fuller and company are primed to, answer the challenge. It's been somewhat, I don't know if embarrassing is the right word, but disappointing, I know, for the Florida State defense over the last couple of seasons overall against Louisville and against the signal caller. And so, he is someone I feel like when looking at Jaden Daniels at LSU, Ryan, is probably more apt to try and stay in the pocket a little while longer than what Daniels did for LSU a couple of weeks ago. He's trying to push the ball down the field with some new wide receivers and new transfers. Tyler Hudson from Central Arkansas has really been a breath of fresh air. I don't know if it's been a surprise to Louisville fans, but he's their leading receiver right now. And Tyon Evans, the Tennessee transfer, is just starting, it feels like, to kind of get going a little bit in the running game. So they've got pieces around Malik that they've added via the transfer portal, like everybody, it feels like, now has done in this era of college football. But it does start, and in so many ways it ends with Malik Cunningham and what you need to do to try and corral that talented young man.
Just a couple more for you, Jeff, and then we'll wrap up. But you talked about it. You go 3-0 if you win this game. You've got your next two games at Doak Campbell Stadium, very gettable Boston College and a Wake Forest team that we all know is talented but has had its struggles in Tallahassee over the years. Obviously, for Florida State, things are in front of you. It becomes a very workable schedule. Your mindset starts to maybe change a little bit if you get to 3-0 and then have a chance at 4 or 5-0 because you have two games at home. But, for this program, for forward momentum, obviously there's been a lot of belief in Mike Norvell and the direction of this program internally for a long time. There's a reason that Athletic Director Michael Alford stood behind him. There's a reason it seems the boosters have stood behind him. There's a reason it seems the players and this program is completely bought in around Mike. But what happens, in your opinion, outside this building? What happens outside Stadium Drive? Does that momentum really become palpable and real outside of just the Florida State fandom and the Garnet and Gold community if Florida State starts 3-0 for the first time, like you said, since 2015? And even hearing that just kind of takes you back a little bit, that it's been 7 seasons since Florida State's done that.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we can look ahead, right? That's the beauty of our business. We get to look ahead and try and, if you want to dream a little bit, think about the what could be or the what ifs, and that's what fans do as well. And so to answer your question, yes, you win another game on national TV in front of a national audience Friday night where you're essentially the only show in town for the most part. Yeah, you better believe it. I mean, I think everybody around the Seminole family starts to think about, okay, what happens now? And you start to play the win-loss game, right? And I know a lot of people are looking at the polls, and I always tell people, don't worry about the polls. You keep winning, you're going to get in the top 25. I mean, that's the big thing. Don't worry about how many votes you got or don't have and who's still in and who's out. Don't worry about it. It'll take care of itself if you keep winning on Saturday as much as you possibly can. So, yeah, I think you start to feel a little juice. I think you start to feel a little electricity. You have a night game here next Saturday with Boston College, and they're a team that's off to an 0-2 start, and they're pretty frustrated, I know, with what they've put on tape so far in Chestnut Hill. So you get this one. All of us outside the building, like you talked about, we get to think about, hey, is this a 5-0 football team going to Raleigh? Hey, is this a 6-0 football team with Clemson coming to town? hey, you start talking about college game day all of a sudden, possibly in tow to Tallahassee if you got two unbeaten teams in mid-October, right? For the team, it's cliche, but you can't think about that. The minute you start doing that, that's when it starts to unravel on you. And you go back to your leadership within the locker room. Mike Norvell has really laid down an outstanding foundation and blueprint and the groundwork for how he wants his team to operate on a day-by-day basis. And man, I can't wait for Friday night, Ryan. Let's get this one going and see how this thing shakes out, because a lot comes from this for both these teams on where their seasons go from here.
Finally, Jeff, you've mentioned it piece by piece throughout this, but I always like to end interviews like this on this simple question. Florida State wins this football game if?
Well, I think they can run the football. And that's hey, obviously you run the football, right? You're going to do okay. Louisville is, right now a team struggling to stop the run. I believe, without my charts in front of me, they're 1/16th of 131 nationally, allowing 208 yards per game on the ground. I think Florida State's the best team Louisville has played so far this season. And to me, Louisville's only played one half of good football this year. Now, can that half springboard them into a confident team with the crowd behind them? I'm guessing nearing a sold-out crowd. They're going to honor Michael Bush, one of their all-time great running backs, on Friday night as well. So you have a little bit of juice around that for Louisville fans. And it's Florida State. Florida State is a team that Louisville fans like to hate and like to see the Garnet and Gold struggle, especially when they're at Cardinal Stadium. So, I think this team can run the football. And you got to go back to Malik Cunningham. I mean, Malik Cunningham has had a high level of success against the Noles. It's kind of like Tatum Bethune told me the other day, hey, quarterbacks don't like to get hit a whole lot. So if he wants to run, we got to tackle him and we got to get him to the ground and we got to let him know we're there and we're here to play. And if that is the case, and that's the recipe, if this Seminole defense, which has been so good against the run and so good getting off the field on third down this season, easier said than done. If you can keep Malik Cunningham in check and corral him and not have a breakdown midway through the third quarter on a play on a 3rd and 6 from the 40 or whatever, and you keep him corralled, you're going to have a lot of success. I don't think this team has to play, above themselves to win this game. If they play very similarly to how they played against LSU, I think their chances are very good, but it's still going to be one of those coin flip caliber games. You have to play well on the road and handle the environment. And like we talked about with LSU, Ryan, you got to handle when a play doesn't go your way. It's going to happen. How do you bounce back? How do you handle it? And how do you move on and use it to your advantage?
And, one final point there off what you said. It's going to be important, not just for Florida State to do it, run the football against Louisville because it's a weakness, but Florida State maybe didn't have the game running the football that a lot of people thought they might against LSU. It seemed poised to be the offensive identity of this team. And that's not to say that it was a bad night on the ground by any stretch, but Florida State threw the ball, I think, a lot more than people expected them against the Bayou Bengals. And obviously Jordan Travis stepped to the occasion, had a really good game. But I think for Florida State's running back room, after having maybe not the ready for primetime experience that so many people thought they would have in the Superdome, to be able to do this against a defensive front seven that's not what LSU's is, to be able to reestablish some of that dominance you saw against Duquesne. And obviously it's Duquesne. There's only so much that you can say, and there's only so much you can go. But if you can find a football team that runs the football somewhere in between 3 guys over 100 yards against an FCS opponent, and maybe not the performance you thought against a pretty dominant defensive line at LSU, you're going to find a pretty good running football team.
100%. Yeah, 100%. And the backs that, that David Johnson has in his room, their work speaks for itself. You don't need a whole lot of room. I do think this offensive line, even though there's some injuries, still is in a good place and still has performed very, very well through the first 2 games of the season. And Jordan Travis has to make great decisions as well. Can he continue his high level of efficiency throwing the football and decision-making at the same time? When to tuck it and run, when to throw the football away. He really has tremendous feel and tremendous ownership of this offense right now, Ryan. And You're going to have two guys. Jordan started at Louisville, same quarterback room with Malik Cunningham, and now facing Malik as veteran quarterbacks back at Cardinal Stadium. And so probably don't need to say a whole lot to Jordan Travis to get him motivated and ready to go out and play a quality football game on Friday night to help lead the Noles to a win. But you're right. This is a group that has the capability. Louisville has looked vulnerable in the run game. And I think Florida State has the attack. And I think Mike Norvell sees what the best path is to success in the running game to try and expose some of those weaknesses.
Jeff Culhane will have the call from you, or for you, I should say, at Cardinal Stadium this Friday night. William Barton on Floyd, Mr. Tom Block on the sideline. I know there will be many sports directors like myself that will be rather happy to have you on the call throughout football Friday night, running high school to high school. Be sure to listen to a lot of you guys this Friday. I know a lot of other people will be. Going to be interesting to see what the Noles can do. But as always, Jeff, we appreciate the time. Voice of the Seminoles, Jeff Culhane. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Ryan. Thanks for having me. Go Noles.